I've been a member at Harvest since the very beginning, since the get-go. So I've been around a while, here anyway. And about 4 years ago, Pastor Hang, I don't know how many of you remember him, asked me to share my testimony in front of the whole congregation around Easter time. And at that time, I'd been a follower of Christ for 9 years. So that was about 4 years ago. But so I guess that makes it about 13 years now. So I'm 36, about to turn 37. So I guess that was what, 24, 23, 24, that I became a follower of Christ. So it's hard to believe it's been that long. And sometimes it feels like it's been my whole life. And anyway, I'm going to start back in my early childhood. So I'm going to go back to about like 30 years ago. A long time ago. Longer than you all have been alive.
So six?
Six.
You're going to go back about 30 years?
Yeah, so about 30, 31, 32 years ago, yeah. Because I really honestly don't remember much. Under 5 years old. So, but when I was a little girl, we went to church. My family took us to church. I have an older brother and an older sister. And we did church activities. I was a part of the choir, and we did what was called Jubilee, which was a Wednesday night program at church. And then I went to a church camp in the summers, and that was really fun, although I got homesick. I don't know if any of you have ever been anywhere and gotten homesick, but I was really homesick. So that was hard, but it was a fun camp. So as a kid, we did good things. We were a good family. I had good relationships with my parents and my family, or my sister and brother. My sister and I were pretty close. We're about 4 years apart. My brother and I, not so much. We tolerated one another. He's 9 years older than me. So I don't know how y'all are with your siblings, but you may relate to that. I also had a good group of friends. We grew up together since we were little. I went to Warrensburg, so I went to the same school from kindergarten all the way through high school. So I had a good group of friends. So life was pretty good when I was little, you know. We did the right things. I had a good family. I can't say anything was really bad. And then I became a teenager, where you guys are at right now. So by this time, you know, my brother was out of the house. He left at a pretty early age, around 17 or 18. Yeah, he had some rough patches, so he moved out. My sister was in high school. I was, you know, middle school, whatever, 15. And so we stopped going to church because the kids were done with what they needed to do. So we didn't go to church anymore. It was kind of almost like a social thing, so we went kind of for the fun and stuff like that. But now those social things really kind of were stopping because I had my own social things at school and so did my sister. So life got really busy. We were both athletic. So we just didn't do church things anymore. So I can't say like my life drastically changed because we stopped going to church. I just missed seeing my friends. But besides that, my life was filled with other things. So my teenage years were fun. I really liked school. I liked my high school. I loved sports. But I also, that's when heartache started coming in. I would still say I was a pretty good person. I didn't party a lot. I didn't hang out with that kind of crowd. I was a good student. I still had a decent relationship with my family. But as you know, being a teenager, acceptance is a big deal. So I was never like in the most popular group at school. I was like, you know, second tier, third tier down. I hung out with the non-athletic people actually. My more athletic friends were kind of more of the partier ones. But so I hung out with my friends that didn't really do that. We had a lot of fun. We were goofy. We hung out with the guys that were in a grade below us. But we were never the girls that all the guys wanted to date. Maybe some of you can relate to that, girls and guys both. Well, did get one of those popular guys to be my boyfriend. And so the relationship that we had formed was one of intimacy and also drama. I remember lots of girl fights over this boy that was my boyfriend at the time, and lots of fights between some friends of mine that also liked him as well. So that relationship lasted probably 8th grade through sophomore year, 7th grade. It was, a good amount of time. So when it ended, I was really depressed. I invested so much of who I was in him. And I struggled with depression and actually went to a psychiatrist and got on some depression medicines because it totally knocked me. So I would love to tell you that it was done by that time. But really it only just began right there in those high school years when I had kind of given my heart and some physicalness to another person. So my quest to fill that void, I don't know if you guys have felt that yet, being teenagers, having a void. So my quest to find that continued. There was an ache for love and acceptance that I just wasn't getting through my family or friends. And what I was seeking, I wanted God to fill that for me. And so that mindset crept in, and it stayed with me for the rest of my high school years. And then I graduated high school, went to Illinois State up in Bloomington. So, I went from a small high school to a big university. It's like, oh, yes, chance to start off on a new foot, new people. Some of my friends from my high school went to that university, but for the most part, it was new people with new opportunities to pave a new path. I quickly learned that grass isn't always greener on the other side, and it was not easy to make friends. And most people I knew were fun people to hang out with and party with. And even my sophomore year, I joined a sorority in hope of finding friendships. And I did find some girls that I clicked with and enjoyed hanging out with, but never any close friends. So not the types like my friends that I had made throughout childhood. They went out to the University of Illinois, and they had a wonderful time. They had made good friends. They had gotten involved. That wasn't my story, so I struggled with that. So in order to find that acceptance and friendship, my nights of going to parties and alcohol were greatly increased. I started just letting myself let down my guard, and I went out to parties, and like I said, in high school I was never really a partier. Well, college I went off and found that I had fun with alcohol, and there was actually a night I remember very vividly. I'm not proud of this moment at all. I came back to my freshman dorm with my two good friends that went to U of I, and they were visiting me. And I was pretty drunk, and I was belligerent to the RA checking us in. And I even had moments of drinking to the point of vomiting. So thankfully, that stage did not last too long, and I began to see how drunkenness affected people. I could see it. I could see what was happening with people as they were they would just pass out, or thank you, and just the misery that happened because of their drinking. So all that to say is that kind of tapered, but the life I let myself lead was nothing less sinful than a night of drunkenness. I can't remember if it was my freshman or sophomore year. This is going to date me, but one of those years is when AOL Instant Messenger was a big deal. I don't know if you guys have heard of AOL Instant Messenger, but it was like you had chat rooms, and you could go into chat rooms and talk to people. And as a lonely college student, because like I said, I didn't make much friends at college, so as a lonely college student, that's just what I did. And I met people through these chat rooms, mainly men, and so I was out there searching for that love and acceptance that I was telling you about. So I did meet some of these guys, and I maintained some relationships throughout my college years. To be quite frank and honest with you, these relationships were very physical, and more physical than I'd ever had before. So I had given myself physically to other people. When you do that, it really, I'll get to that in a minute, but I thought when that kind of connection happens, you get these ideas in your mind that this is going to lead you to marriage. This is going to go somewhere deep. But as in all the relationships that I had, they were fairly toxic, and they ended leaving me sad and depressed. So once again, trying to find that love and acceptance and fill the void. So I got through college, still having the same issues that I had started having in high school. And so I graduated college with my degree. I had got my first job about 150 miles from home, so that was a pretty big stretch for me, going from Decatur or Wardsburg to Bloomington, now going all the way down by St. Louis. So I got my first job there. So once again, in my mind, I didn't know anybody. I was excited about a new opportunity and doing adult things. I was ready to do, adult things, more adult things, I guess, that you don't do when you're in college. You have to be more responsible, I guess. Well, moving away, I got lonely, okay? I didn't really know anybody besides my coworkers. And so once again, I went to the internet to find a companion. And I got involved with some guys, and mainly one in particular. And once again, I thought he was the one. Again, this relationship was another physical one, and it was toxic. It was pretty toxic. And what I mean by that is, it wasn't deep. It was just physical, just a lot of arguing and a lot of unkind words said to one another, and it ended. And here I was again. I was hopeless. I was lost. I was in a super, super dark place. I remember having to pull into work a couple times because I just couldn't face the day. And I remember there was a time when my dad and sister actually came down to get me and take me back home, because when depression comes over you, it really takes away your life. I couldn't function. So I think I took some sick time, and they took me back home. And I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful that they came and got me, and I needed that. So I feel kind of like I've been a broken record to you, telling you the same things about my teenage years and my college years and my post-college years. But guys, this is where my story changes. This is the part that brought me to tears the other day when I was doing it. So, so one night, I was in my room at my house down by St. Louis there, and just really depressed. I was just down on my knees, and I was just asking for this pain to be taken away from me. Just the emotional pain was becoming more than I could bear. I really didn't know how much more I could take. I was never suicidal, but I had that mindset, like, I can't take this anymore. This is so hard so I was just crying out, take it away from me. I don't even know who I was saying it to. You know, like if I was asking God, take this away from me, or if I was just saying, take this away from me. But I can't remember those exact details. But, and so that was, I think, a night before work. And I can't remember if it was the next day or shortly after. I had approached a former colleague and asked if I could go to church with her. She had invited me several times before to go with her, and I just kind of shrugged it off. I wasn't ready to get back into that. When your sin is, when it gives you such shame, like it did for me, with what I had done with my body, that I didn't want to step foot in church. So I just shrugged it off. But this time I asked her if I could go with her. And her husband worked for the church, so in some capacity, I can't remember if he was a youth pastor or what he was, but I asked her to meet me there. And that Sunday morning that I met her at church, my life was changed. I remember during the worship set, which was, you know, contemporary music, which I didn't come from, that wasn't my background in church. So I remember during the worship set, I was just in tears, like broken. I'm not sure if it was that Sunday or the following Sunday, but I went to a Sunday school class for young adults that were my age, so young 20s. And I just remember all of that emotion came out. Like, I was in tears. And I remember one of the girls that was in the class with me, just telling me about salvation, telling me that my sins could be forgiven by Christ. I was brought to my knees that day, and I said yes. So after all of those years, so let's see, started in high school, so 4 years plus 4 years of college, plus my work, so like a decade of everything that I did. I was pursuing a relationship to fill that void that I could not fill. And at that same time, Christ was pursuing me, just waiting for that moment to bring me to him. And he had to get me to my knees first, which was hard. There were definite, my life was so that he could do that he could bring me to that point. I think I needed to go through those things before I realized that I needed him. So, I accepted Christ at, what I tell you, 13 years ago. So, 23, 24. But it's not like a genie in a bottle. Okay? I wasn't completely, snap my fingers and I was completely changed. I still struggled with who I was. And I struggled big time with shame from my past. I still struggled with temptations to give into physical pleasures. But through that, I felt that my thoughts and attitudes about things were changing, and that Christ was giving me power through his Spirit to say no to those sinful things. I felt more alive than I had in a while. I got involved in a church, and in the church that I got saved in. Met some wonderful people who encouraged me in my walk, and God just has a sense of humor about things. Months later, after that job opening came back up in Decatur. This is not where I wanted to end up, by the way. I wanted to leave home and find someplace fun and new, but like I said, God has a sense of humor. He brought me back here. I interviewed and was offered the job. And so I started working and started going to a church up here. I found a church home, and not Harvest because it didn't exist. but I found a church home, got involved there, got involved in a small group, and then I started working. I was working for a while, and I met my husband's mom, and met her before him, and got introduced to him later, and so he kind of has a similar backstory to mine, except for not all the relationship issues, but he didn't become a follower of Christ until his college years too. But I wanted that. That was the first time I wanted something like, I wanted a Christ-following man. I'd never wanted that before in my relationships. And God gave me that. He gave me the desires of my heart, but he gave me himself first. He wanted to give me himself first before he gave me a man. And I will tell you that though my sins have been forgiven, I've had to deal with the baggage from unhealthy relationships. My marriage went through a really rough patch, and I was close to walking out the door. But God in his goodness and mercy restored that too. I remember a sermon that Pastor Tony did when he mentioned the verse from Joel. Oh my goodness, where's my last page? It's not here. Well, I'm just going to have to go off script. Okay, so he had said, I believe it's from Joel, I looked it up. It talked about restoring what the locusts had eaten. And I felt that really hit home. The locusts had eaten a decade of my life with my sins, and God is working to restore that. And so that just really spoke to me. So I just want to tell you that I don't know where you are, and I'm not sure what I can't remember what my last page said. I have a pretty good idea, so I'm going to look up the verse. All right. I'm sure y'all are familiar. I'm not sure where you guys are in your walk with Christ. If you've said yes to him, if you've given your life over to him. But I was brought to Romans 3:23, where it says, "For all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God." That's true of all of us. Whether your sins are like mine, whether they're sexual sins, or whatever the case may be, we all sin and fall short of the glory of God. But my favorite part of this chunk of Romans is that in verse 24 it says, and are justified by his grace as a gift through the redemption that is in Christ Jesus. Even though I'm a sinner, I repented of my sins, and I was forgiven by him. And because of that, I've been justified by him. I've been justified by his grace, and he's redeemed me. So when he looks at me, he doesn't see Angie of 2000 whatever. He sees me as he sees Jesus. And so that's just a cool thing, that you don't have to live in your darkness. You can lay that down now, and you can give that to him and ask for forgiveness, and he will forgive you, and he will restore what those locusts have eaten from you. And I just really encourage you to just really think about that. Really think about where you are right now, and what he's done for you. He took your sins on the cross. He took my sins on the cross, and he laid his life down for that. And my sins are there, and they're forgiven, and yeah, I'm a child of God now. I'm not a child of the darkness. So.